right, guys, we're going to jump into our fourth guest of the episode. And this girl is on for her third time. I love it. We have two guests returning for their third time on the show. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Hollie. Hey, girl, how's it going?
Hey girl, good. How are you guys doing?
So good. I am so excited because um, I got to be friends with you. It wasn't through your obviously pregnancy, it was after with Sadie, but I got to kind of be friends with you for this whole time. But I don't really know much about your childbirth story. So I'm so excited that you offered to come on the show and share that today. And yeah, excited to get to know you on that level a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm excited to share it because it was kind of traumatic for me. So I am just getting into the process of healing from my childbirth with her. So
Yeah,
just to be
that's
able to bring
fair.
that there and share. Yeah.
That's totally fair. That's so awesome. And how do you feel about, well, not awesome, sorry, not meaning like your experience, your traumatic experience wasn't awesome. It's awesome that you're willing to share and work through it now and see it as more of like a growth and a learning curve, probably than when you were through it, you're probably just like having a lot more different thoughts then.
Totally. And after I had her, I still wanted more babies. So obviously it didn't scar me that bad.
it wasn't it wasn't like a deal end, but it was like kind of like a
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And how did you feel after your last two episodes? Still feeling the good vibes from recording your last two?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my mom, she didn't want to talk about anything about the birth control episode because she's like, oh, you're just gonna get yourself pregnant. But I understand where she's coming from her because she's a nurse, so I
Of
understand
course.
where she's coming from on that nurse side of things. But other than that, yeah, I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
I love it. And I totally get it too. And for me, well, and I'm sure my mom wouldn't be too upset if I ended up pregnant. So she's kind of like in a different space. But I think for her, for just the havoc it caused on me, it was just easier for her to be like, yeah, do whatever you need to do. And yeah, I was a couple days late and I was like watching Flow and it was like continually telling me like you're 2 days late. I'm like, yeah, thanks. I see that. And then I went back and it was like more historically I would get it at the time that I did. So I felt a little bit better just because my one a couple two birth anyways, the natural tracking is actually like the more and more you do it, it honestly like the more and more in tune you feel with your body and really see how it the cycle works and how you can kind of work with it to try and nail it down. It just and then when your period starts being right on time, then you really feel like the ovulation tracking is a lot more accurate, right? So I don't know. I just I get it totally the same way, but it is super exciting when once you're on this journey more and more every month you start to be in tune with your cycle and you're like, yeah, fuck
Yeah,
yes.
like boom,
Yeah.
got this. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like the 1 or 2 days off. You're like, what? And then it's like, oh, okay. Historically, yeah, this makes sense. And then it's like, but it's still timing it within 1 or 2 days. So you feel like your ovulation. That sounded like that sounds something off of the Grinch. No, sorry, your ovulation. You kind of have a little bit more faith in when that is. And then, yeah, so just instilling a little bit more faith, hopefully, in her that it has been working in a positive for me. So I'm hoping the same for you. But anyway, squirreling, back to
Yes.
babies, back to delivery. So your due date, were you on time with or overdue, early? How'd that work out?
Oh, so it was 80. I did not know what point I actually got pregnant. So she was originally giving like a due date of like Valentine's Day,
Mhm.
and then they moved it to like the end of February, and then I went 10 days overdue.
Oh, wow.
So she was born on March 7th.
Oh, wow. So from like February
Yeah,
15th to March 7th.
basically. Yeah, because they were like, oh, I think we're wrong. I think she's actually you're further along than what we thought, since you don't have an actual date of your last period. So we are going to say February 14th. And then they're like, no, we are going to change that because she can cook for a little bit longer, basically. And yeah, she came out and she was like almost shriveled up because she was overcooked. But was a grumpy little old lady.
She
But
incubated too long.
yeah, right.
That's so funny. It's like that's that like that meme I shared with the 2020 like cranky baby faces. That was Zadie.
Yeah, straight up. I think there's a picture of her when we brought her home, and she looks just like that.
That's hilarious. I love that.
Yeah. And then Raina, she was a scheduled a scheduled section, so she was like a week early.
Nice. Okay, cool. So you're a little bit more like a little bit more on time to that expected due date. That's awesome. And then for both, this is new to me. And so some people are like, yeah, I had no idea what a birth plan is. And some people are like, oh yeah, no, I had this like planned out. Did you have a birth plan for one or either, or were you just like going through it?
I laugh because originally I feel like a lot of people say this. I wanted no drugs. I originally wanted an at home in my bathtub birth with Zadie, actually. And yeah, all of it was freaking kibosh. But it was kibosh like pretty early on in my birth plan. I seen my baby doctor halfway through and he's like, Holly, like her like the baby's head, the way that it's kind of like stuck in your pelvic bone. Um, we're probably gonna have to do a C-section. She might move, but she's like right in there. So just preparing you for that as being a possibility. And I'm like, okay, well, of course I had a little cry about it because all my hormones and emotions and
Of
all
course.
of those things.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, if that is what it is what it is. And I prepared myself for that possibility.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, yeah, like I had a spontaneous bleed with her early on in my pregnancy. So she was a 50-50 chance of making it anyway. So the fact that I was able to actually bring her to full term was like a freaking miracle because I wasn't able to do anything my whole pregnancy. So I got really, really big.
Yeah,
So
no, that's
I
fair.
halfway like at that point I'm just like, I don't care as long as she comes out healthy. I don't
Exactly.
even
No.
care what the plan is anymore. I
Yeah.
just tell me what I need to bring to the hospital and I'll bring those things. Like
Yeah, totally. Yeah, at that point, for and like you said, everyone goes in it thinking, but at the end of the day, what's most important is the least amount of stress on yourself and the least amount of stress on the baby. And as much as you have a plan, I think in the moment, especially too, and as mothers, and just even women having that nurture um, part of them, just it's more important that she comes out healthy no matter how that pans out against what you originally thought. And even though anxiety and your hormones are just like, no, you're like, no, most important is as they're healthy.
right.
And then obviously for the second one you had a plan because there was a date. Or was that plan was like right away you're like, I'm going in for a C-section, or it was like, had that pan, I don't know why I keep
Um
saying how'd that pan out. I need new catchphrases. Fuck.
so my the doctor that delivered Zadie was actually the same doctor that I had for Raina. And with Ray, like we talked about the possibilities, but I went through so much stress with Zadie and like just the whole trauma of her like physical birth. I guess we'll talk about that a little bit further in a minute. But
Yeah.
she's like, I don't want to stress your body out any more than it needs to be. And we are just going to open up that C-section scar that you had from your first, and we'll just take her out that way. That way you don't have the chance of like when you're pushing, you don't have the chance of like ripping that open or anything like that either.
Oh, and
And then it's it is what it is kind of thing, right? But she
that's fair.
also projected it thinking that Raina was going to have a big head because Sean has a big head. And she came out like the tiniest little baby. Well, I guess she wasn't the tiniest, but she was like way smaller than Zadie was. Zadie came out like a chunker, and
That's
Raina came out like a full pound and a half smaller. And we're like, what do we do with you? You're so little.
Oh my goodness, that's so cute. So then
Yeah.
you're obviously, like you said, you had a plan. It didn't go through, probably necessarily for both, because you're probably going to the second one, maybe hoping a little bit more to try to do what you did the first time. So how did that all work? Because I guess the question for it would be, did you have cesarean or vaginal? So how did the end goal work, or end goal when it came to time? How did that all work?
Okay, so start to finish for Zadie, I went a week or 10 days overdue, so they had to induce me.
Oh,
So I went into the hospital at like 6 a.m. I was induced by 7, and I think they have like different ways of inducing people. I don't know the proper terms, but it was like the one that looks like a tampon. They put it up in you to kind of get contractions moving.
yeah.
And I was getting contractions back to back to back with no break.
Oh,
So I was getting like 6 contractions and then I'd have like a minute to breathe. And it was the worst experience I've ever experienced in my entire life. Like
that's fair.
it was so bad. The only thing that would give me relief would be like curling my toes up against the edge of the bed. That was
Yeah,
it. And I couldn't lie on my side because baby's heart rate would go down. Oh my God, it was just a shit show.
that's fair.
And so they did that, and I had to walk around the hospital, of course. Like I felt like, oh my God, it was so bad. And then I felt nauseous because I was in so much pain. And they did that for a couple of hours. And then they're like, oh, like baby's heart rate is going irregular. Um, I don't know, like we need to start progressing here. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like just do the things, right?
Yeah, I'm on
So
board. Let's go.
yeah, right. So I guess I dilated and then I was ready to they moved me to a different room because they were admitting me. They didn't want to send me home because my heart rate, baby's heart rate was gone, like sporadic.
Yeah.
And then they moved me to another room and they got me to push for a little bit, but it wasn't going anywhere. I was just exhausting myself. So it was like a waiting game. It was like a hurry up and wait because then I had to go to, this is going to sound gross, but I had to go to the bathroom because I mean, I was pushing so hard and I had to poop then because that's just what happens. And I could feel
Yeah.
all of my body.
Yep.
And I guess I pushed that little thing out that they had
Oh.
put in me to give the hormones to get
Uh-oh.
the labor to start.
Yeah.
So I'm
Whoops.
like, okay, right? Whoopsie. So then the contractions actually started to become more regular, which was great. But she got so stuck in my pelvic bone that there was full on like pelvic pressure.
Yeah.
And so halfway through the day, my regular doctor comes in and he's like, I think you need a C-section and I think you need it like now. And then the other baby doctor comes in and she's like, no, we're just going to put her through and see what happens.
Oh.
So I was in so much pain. I'm like, okay, give me the drugs. Give them to
Yeah.
me, all of them. So they gave me morphine and Gravol, and unfortunately, it didn't do anything for me. It actually made me quite sick.
Oh.
Um, and then I had to like stand in the bathroom bouncing on like the bouncy ball in the shower with cold water because I was just so sick. And then like an hour or so later, I'm like, you know what, guys, like give me more than this. I can't do this. Give like you guys just made me violently ill. I couldn't eat all day either. So
Yeah.
I was like starving, starving. So I'm like, okay, let's just do this epidural already. Like just like maybe that will help me and release the tension that I was feeling in my lower body because now that I'm in so much pain, it's just causing more tension, right? I'm not able to relax, right?
Yeah. Totally. Can't get in
So
that
I'm like,
mindset at all.
right? So I was like, okay. And then I was given the epidural and then I was pushing and I was like, I could do this all day, feeling like a boss. Like, hell yeah, let's just do this. And I pushed for an hour. So from the beginning it was like 7. This was probably like 6 or like maybe 5:36. And next thing you know, like the monitor is like showing sporadic oxygen levels and like heart rate.
Yep.
So next thing you know, I was like pushing on all fours. They pushed me like they made me push in all weird positions, like all of them.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, they lay me down real quick. Oxygen mask was on my face. Some weird straps around my belly. Of course, I'm so out of it. I don't even know what's happening at this point. I'm just like la da da.
Yeah.
And and they were like, okay, so we're at the point we're at the option baby stuck. We either need to do forceps or a C-section because they aren't going to make it unless we get them out now. And I was like, okay, so I'm doing a C-section because forceps sounds terrifying. Let's get her out.
Yeah. Totally.
So they quickly prepped me and I was trying to eat fries. And then they came in and one of the nurses yelled at me and was like, you're not supposed to eat. You're going in for surgery. And I was like, listen, I am starving.
Yeah.
So
I'm
you're
gonna
gonna have to
die.
calm down. Like I need these like 5 fries, like
Yeah.
chill.
Yeah.
Like,
Relax.
right? So I went in and it was so strange because they couldn't give me this regular dose that they would for an epidural because they had or for a cesarean because they had already given me an epidural.
Right.
And I'm not a very big person, right? So I could feel a lot of things that I probably wasn't supposed to feel. A lot of, and the way that she was stuck in like my left side of my hip.
Oh,
So it was like I could feel them physically like prying her out of me.
oh,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then I couldn't feel my arms. So I couldn't feel like my right underneath my boobs and up. I couldn't feel any of that. But anything
wow.
like that was like fair game. I was
Whoa,
like, what the hell? It was creepy.
that is
It was
creepy.
creepy. Yeah.
That's a whole different connection with your child.
And the worst thing was is they gave me to like they took her out, cut her umbilical cord, laid her on me. I couldn't feel her. And for me, that was the most heart-wrenching thing ever because my ex had to like push my hand
Yeah,
like on her and like hold me there because I had no control over my limbs, right?
right.
Like I
Yeah,
couldn't be trusted to hold her. And it was so sad. It was like one of those, oh, this is amazing, but I can't feel you. Like, what?
yeah. That's not
And
how I planned it.
right? And then
Yeah,
they with a cesarean, I had to go to recovery until the drugs wore off.
yeah.
And they took and and her dad took her back to the hospital room. So
Yeah,
I
that's
was in there
terrible.
for like I think I was in for the first time around, I think I was in there for an hour because I had so all the drugs in my
Yeah.
system. The second time around, and I slept like the whole time. The nurse like complimented me on how I napped. I
Good.
was like, girl, I had no choice.
Yeah, I
Second time
just needed.
around, right? Second time around, I think I was in recovery for it felt like a really long time, but I think it was only like a half an hour or so.
Yeah.
I still never had a lot of feeling in my legs, but I was like the numbingness came out of my arms quite a bit, so I was able to actually try to nurse and stuff. But yeah, it was a bit of a shit show.
And so then, so okay, well, congratulations for trying for doing it again after all that for one, because like that, yeah, that sounds like, I mean, yeah, sounds a little bit
Yeah,
not not dramatic, like I don't, but like no traumatic, I guess, without it being
traumatic.
traumatic.
Yeah,
It is a beautiful experience, but in the same case, like some people are just like do, and some are just like, well, that was something else. Uh, but I mean, like you said, you did it again, so obviously it wasn't something where you felt like the reward was worth the risk and the shit that you went through. So when you came to being pregnant the second round, was it immediately like, okay, we're gonna get a cesarean, or were you in a mindset like, I'm gonna try this naturally again?
I think my mind. Okay, so for the first one, I healed. I healed terribly with my cesarean, where I had so much weight gain. I had fluid in my knees. I had like it was hard recovery. I think I spent 3 weeks sleeping straight up on the corner of my couch. You know, like the sectional corner. I slept. That was basically my bed with the first one.
Yeah.
Um, it was a really, really tough recovery, especially that first baby, first time mom situation. And my situation wasn't great. I never had a supportive partner. So I think like when I got pregnant the second time, I was like, oh, I don't know. I think I was like, well, I've done the C-section before. I was like, I am terrified of the fact of doing vaginal because I've never had it done. And I've heard people of just ripping all the way to their buttholes. And I was
Yeah.
like, right now, everything down there is nice and tight. We
Yeah.
don't have to mess with any of that. So
Yeah.
maybe like we'll see what the doctor recommends. I think
Yeah.
is I was kind of flexible with either way.
Totally.
And then when she said, she's like, I remember you. Like it was really cool because she was able to put a face to a vagina, I guess, because it's what she does. But like, you know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
like, oh hey,
I
and
feel
she's like,
honored. Out of all
right?
vaginas, you remembered mine.
I was like, out of all the babies you delivered, and
Yeah.
right? So it was pretty cool. Like I'm like, your
Yeah.
bedside manner is like top notch, lady.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good.
but when she said that I that was an option to do a C-section, I was like, yeah, maybe it's for the best. And then we can kind of have a better idea of how to schedule it and mentally prepare myself a little bit better. Plus, having a second child, I was able to find the childcare too, right? Like that would be a big thing too. If I just
Yeah.
turned around and went to labor, I'm like, where does my other one go? Because we don't have family here.
Exactly. Yeah. Just
So,
hang out outside, kid. We'll be right back.
right?
BRB. You guys
Right?
stay
No kidding.
cool. No, that's fair. And like, and it's too like it's one of those things where again, you're coming to the fact where you've been through it once. And like you said, it wasn't the best experience. However, you have no idea what's coming up if you went to the other journey. And going to the other journey for you, there was complications. There was a little bit more stressing in those times. You didn't get to have that connection moment. So then, can you walk us through your second C-section? Were there moments that you got to have through the second that you didn't get in the first?
Sort of, yeah. So the first time, like, my ex's mom came up, and my mom came up from Newfoundland, and we had people come in and visit us within the first hour of me being back to the room, and it was like a flood of people nonstop all day, to the point where baby got stressed out because I couldn't feed her because I was stressed out. It was a really, really terrible time. The second time around, it was pretty chill.
Good.
We drove to the hospital, um, and I think it was Sean's mom met us there. Just as like support, like go for, that kind of thing. And my mom was here too. So we all kind of like went together. And then me and Sean were just in the room and waiting. And they gave us, I think the nurse called it the penthouse suite because there's nobody else having babies at that time.
Nice.
And we were like at the top floor. It was like a super chill morning. Like I wasn't able to eat that early because my body just doesn't let me eat that early. But we just hung out, and we were able to have that really cool connection with me and him that me and my ex never got to have before.
Yeah. That pre-moment before.
Yeah, it was like look, our family's going from 3 to 4, and I get to have you to myself for like this is kind of cool. Like, and they actually had like another bed set up for him. So he was actually able to stay with me after baby too in his own bed, which is really cool.
That is really cool.
And they came in and they brought me down for an epidural. He wasn't able to come with me for the epidural itself. The epidural, he couldn't get me to hit like the right angle. So he had like stabbed me in the back like 6 times before he
Jesus.
could get the prop. Oh, it fucking hurt. But after that, they prepped me for surgery and everything like that. We went down, and Sean came with me into the room. I don't remember if Chris ever came into the room with me. I don't remember if he was there. I'm sure he was, but I don't remember. This time around, I was like coherent. I could see what was happening. The only real thing that I remember of Zadie's birth being in the C-section part was she came out and she wasn't crying and she was purple. So to me, I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, where'd you take my baby? This time around, the doctor's like, hey, Sean, do you want to see what we're doing? Pull the sheet back. Sean got to see everything and her come out.
Whoa.
Yeah, he was into it. He was like, yeah, that's cool.
That's so awesome.
I was like grossed out by that idea, but like, whatever. Do you?
You do you. I'll be over here.
But when Ray came out not crying, I wasn't super worried because like typically you have to remove all the
fluids.
Yeah, all the yucky stuff off of them. I'm here like moving my hands like you can see them. But all the yucky stuff off of them because they can't, like they don't have the pressure, like vaginally they have the pressure and it's all removed, they come out crying. But C-sections, they don't do that. And they're just like going to town and taking all the mucus off of her so she can breathe. And she starts screaming and then I'm like crying and Sean's like smiling. It was really cool the second time around because it was, although I had myself worked up because my anxiety just does that.
Of course.
It was a lot cooler the second time around because when we got back to like the actual hospital room, we had our close parents and I think we had 1 or 2 friends the next day. So we had like the night to ourselves. And like the nurses that were on were amazing, which was rare for like compared to the previous one. I had some really not so nice nurses who were like trying to teach me how to nurse. And they were like throwing Zadie's face on my boob and nothing was working. And then I was overwhelmed. And it was just a bad time. This time around, it was
more supportive.
They were just so nice. Oh yeah. They were way nicer. And Sean got to stay the night and called in baby to work. I was like, you know what, I'm taking some time. And he got to share that first night with me too, which was really freaking cool.
That's amazing. So then after, because I know the first one, you didn't get to have that connection right away. Did you get that connection the second time because your upper body wasn't, or was your upper body frozen as well, or what was that moment?
It was still frozen, but I could still feel her there. It was really
Cool.
strange. I don't really quite know how to explain it because I think the first one where I was so like disconnected with my body, disconnected with the situation. I think I was very much in denial the first time around. I think I was like almost due, and I'm like, I can't do this. And I'm like, but it's too late now. I'm this far along. Like I can't not, like but like the second time I could feel her close, like I could feel my face the second time, I think
Yeah.
is what the biggest change was.
Yeah.
The first time I couldn't like I could move my head, but it was really heavy.
Yeah.
The second time around I could feel her. This just gave me chills, but I could feel her. Like I pulled her up closer, like where she was in my shoulder, and I could feel her across my neck. And I think that's the thing that made the difference.
Totally.
Like
And
I
you had
could move,
that presence.
yeah, and I could physically move my arm. I just couldn't feel it. It was kind of like having like your arm or like fall asleep.
Yeah.
Kind of felt like that. Like I couldn't trust myself to hold her there, so Sean was still there, but I could, it was a lot better the second time for sure.
Totally. And then you got to see that expression on him and that first like dad moment for him too, which is, I think, not necessarily that you just were in the mindset the first time, but the second time, like because Sean's been there and so supportive through the whole part of it, and watching that moment, he got to become a dad in more of like a clearer mindset, because the second round was obviously, yes, of course you had your anxieties, but you weren't like, oh my God, I can feel her being pulled from my side, or just had gone through labor, or had gone through all of that. It was more just like, there was mental anguish, but not as much. So you were able to absorb a lot of the more beautiful moments than you did the first time, I think. So it's really exciting that you got to have those moments, unfortunately not first time, but at least you got it second round and got to see that with Sean too.
Yeah, the fact that like Sean was like super supportive, even when we got home, there was a night, like our first night home, me and him slept on the couch. We fell asleep holding hands
Aw.
as Rita was like laying on my chest. It was like a whole 360. Like Sean was always touching my belly. He was, like painting my toes and stuff like that. Like he really, as soon as he found out he was going to be a dad, he honed in on that whole situation of becoming a dad. Like
That's so amazing.
he was so great with Zadie anyway that I knew he was going to kill it. But he, I
It's
mean,
sweet.
obviously every guy is worried about being a dad. Like let's get realistic here. But
Oh, of course.
um, it was a total different. Like we had that full connection. Yeah, it was just really cool.
I love that. And then you had, like you said, you had those bonding moments at the hospital before. You had all the bonding moments leading up in the pregnancy, and then you had those moments after, during the surgery, essentially,
Yeah,
and after too. And I think that just, you already knew that about him, but having that door of fatherhood for himself open in a different way, where obviously he has that connection with Zadie, but there's obviously going to be a deeper connection with something that has, like, your DNA to it.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, and to see, for you to watch the two of you come together, like, it's just been beautiful for us to watch on the outsides of it. So it's just really cute to hear on the insides as well. And you can just tell that he, just stepped into his fatherhood role and was like, yeah, I'm going to be a dad. And he's very involved. And I'm so happy for that for you, because I know that's attributed to your success, to continue to being the best mother you can be. So it's really awesome to watch.
Oh, thanks.
So going back to a little bit more, how big were the girls?
Uh, that is a great question because I don't remember, which
Roughly.
sounds terrible.
Oh, well,
So
then,
Zadie,
yeah, it's different too when you like pushing them out and they're like, the info's there, right? You have that break in between.
right? So Zadie was, I think she was about 7 pounds, 14 ounces, I think.
Hmm.
Ray was uh, 6-ish pounds.
Yep. So that was all in the head difference. Just
Yeah, right?
that's where it is.
Oh, right, no kidding. Yeah, Ray Zadie came out with like she was chunky. She came out with rolls.
That's, yeah,
Um,
me too.
Ray came out and I'm like, what do we do with her? She's so scrawny. I was like, her like newborn clothes was baggy, and I was like, oh, like, come here, let me just. Now she's running around and she's covered in rolls still, and I'm like, this is so cute. Like, don't stop, because you can tell she's she's really healthy girl, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it was funny. I guess not super funny, but ironically funny at the time.
Yeah.
The doctor comes in and was like, "Oh, like I think your little one has jaundice, so we're just gonna go get her tested." And Sean's pacing the halls, like, "Oh my gosh, I can't!" Like they took her, they're taking too long. Like super protective dad, right? Like just
Yeah.
like where'd they take my baby? And they come back and he's like, "Okay, so the jaundice test came back negative, but I'm gonna do the skin test." And Sean looks at me, he's like, "It's probably because you're so white and I'm native that she looks, half yellow." And I was like, I don't know. Anyways, everything came back
That's
totally
so
fine. But
oh
I was like, it's just her skin tone. It's all
yeah.
that it is. It's
Oh, that's
okay. Give
sweet.
her back.
I love it, but like the whole time it's just like that's his reasoning about it, right? Like trying to act like, "Oh, I don't care. Oh, it's just that. It's just this, you know? Like I don't really care." Meanwhile, like biting his nails off and treading on the floor.
Right? Like just give her back. It's
Yeah.
fine. Give her back.
You're fine. It's fine. It's everything is cool. I love that. So if you were and sorry, how was the recovery from both of these? Like Zadie, you said was not great and took a long time. Was that the same way with Ray?
So was with Ray, we actually flew across the country after
Oh,
she was probably 2 weeks.
oof.
And we went to Newfoundland. And I was like hiking every day. I was hiking like cliffs and stuff like every day.
Oh, so then like second round was definitely a far less traumatic during
Oh
after
hell
that.
yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I was feeling like $1 million. Mom was like, I mean, obviously I was sore.
Of course.
My doctor got mad at me because when I was still in the hospital, there was one night that I thought I ripped my stitches because I coughed or laughed or something funny. And I had like a sharp pain go through my right side. And she's like, "Did you take your T3s or something?" And I was like, "No, I thought I could just, it's okay." And she's like, "Holly, now is not the time to be a superstar. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. Take the drugs." She's like, "That is where they forced your section, like, they had the forceps on that side to make the hole bigger."
Yeah.
So I was feeling the remnants of like the pressure that they had put on that side. And she's like, "Just take the drugs." I was like, "Okay, fine." So
Jeez.
when I flew across the country, I had my mom and I had Sean and I had Ray, or Zadie and Ray. So I was able to nurse on the plane. I had Sean and mom carrying my stuff. Zadie was really easy to take care of. I had Raina wrapped to me basically in one of those tieable wraps, which was a shit show to try to figure out at that when she was so young and little. But we made it, and it was a really cool holiday. We stayed there for 2 weeks, and yeah, we were out adventuring because it was the end of the summer because Raina was born July 24th.
Yeah.
So it was the end of the summer that we got to really experience the nice weather. Me and Sean got to go out for a couple of walks by ourselves because Grandma and Grandpa or Nana Pop wanted babies, right? They
Yeah.
wanted
Of
grown-ups to hang out with, and
course.
I was able to pump some bottles for them, and it was really really cool. I'm really really grateful that we were able to do it. I was nervous, but I mom was like, "Well, just listen to your body," and I was like, "I feel good. I'm gonna go do this." So like yeah, I think we hiked or went maybe not like a full on hike, but
Yeah. An
we did
adventure.
like we went on an adventure every day.
That's so amazing.
And we actually went like downtown George Street and went for a few drinks. Like it was wild. I don't know how I did it. I look back and I was like, damn. But like I just listened to my body and yeah, I still had like a bandage there that needed to be cleaned up every day. Or like I couldn't get into salt water, which sucked. I could get up to my knees, which was like a tease. But yeah, it was just like I want to embrace this because I'm not going to have the opportunity to embrace this like this again, right? So
Absolutely.
it was really cool.
That's amazing. And so I know, not even like right now, but just saying down the road, I know it's not off the table to have another child. If you could, or if you go through that again, where would you just say, yeah, let's go through a C-section again? Would you be open to, not open to, but like, how do you feel if you were to do it again?
I think I would go the C-section route just because the way that I recovered, that my body is like it's used to that way now anyway.
Totally.
And I was actually asked when I had Raina, the doctor asked if she wanted me to if I wanted her to tie my tubes while she was in there taking her out. And I was like, well, please don't ask like a pregnant person that, because of course a pregnant person is going to be like, I'm done having babies. I don't want no more. I'm done being pregnant. And I'm like, can
Not
I?
fucking again.
No, right? But I think she was thinking where the stress of the first one that maybe I wouldn't want to have anymore after this. But she did give me fair warning that it's not suggested to have any more than three with
Mhm.
my C-section,
Yep.
just because of the scarring and the way that the skin is, and all the things that come with it of using the same scar over and over and over again, right?
Of course.
Um, so I think that my mind would be made up to have a C-section anyway, because the thing is, it's not an easy way out by no means, because the
No.
recovery sucks.
Yes.
But I also it's nothing new, and I'm okay with that, because if it goes as planned and scheduled, like the last one was, I can kind of make plans around that. And I know like it's never the situation that it always goes that way. Like maybe baby would show up early, like there's always the possibility of complications. But I think where my body's just so used to the scar is already there. Let's
Yep.
just keep using that and just get
Yeah.
baby out.
Well, yeah. And I think for you too, it's just like, especially when you have naturally have anxiety, that's one way that, like you said, obviously you can't plan everything, but at least if you have this, okay, I know I'm going to have surgery, I need to have my support in place. Not that you don't need it through vaginal, for sure, like obviously both, but just body wise, right? Having people carry
Totally.
stuff and carry the baby more, and just like, be a little bit more hands on up to, 3 to 4 weeks after, where they say after, like vaginally you can, obviously be a little bit more mobile. And like you said, you're not going to go through the pressure of putting your body through that labor and not knowing if she's going to like bout out to the side again, or, so all those unknowns again of going through that, let's say on a natural aspect, is all removed. And it's a lot easier for to be like, okay, if there's complications, at least I have all of these things set up already.
Totally. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing was not having to redo that labor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to do that
Never
again.
again.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I just love to hear, you know, the supportive men part, because as much as it's the female going through obviously the physical part, like that is such a crucial moment for the father too. And I love how Sean was very present through all of it, excited for it. And you can just see now, even as you guys are growing as a family, the continual sight of like him being a dad is really fun for all of us too. So if that does happen again, obviously we're rooting for you guys. If not, it's just been a treat watching it happen so far. And yeah, I hope. Do you have anything else? Any advice maybe for anybody worried about the C-section route or going through? Do you have any advice before we wrap up for today?
Um, I'm just thinking because okay, I think for the longest time I thought a C-section, that they like take all your guts out on the table. That is incorrect, by the way. Don't ever think of it that way. Sean's like, that is not what happened. And I was like, I just assumed they just took out my guts and rearranged it. Like, but that is not the case whatsoever. And anything that you think in your head is like what it is going to be not that. I think that was the other thing too, because I was like, oh, like it's gonna be, I don't know, say it's gonna be freaking terrible. And hey, it was semi-terrible. I'm not gonna lie, it's still a scalpel to your midsection to get a baby out, but the reward is so much more worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. And then just again, if you can, and maybe it's not your spouse, but having that one, at least one person to support you through that whole time, is really crucial. And you will always be an advocate for yourself. If something's not right, or you don't feel good, say something.
Oh, now my baby gremlin is in here making me
Oh
sneeze.
no. Oh no.
Say hello.
Oh no. All right. Well, perfect timing. Thank you so much for coming on the show again, Holly, for your third time. I love getting to know more. I'm so glad that at the roundabout, the reward was worth everything you went through. And I love that you continually see the growth in everything and that you want to be a part of the show. So thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love it.
La
I
la
love it.
la.
Our first child guests. we'll make sure we clean up the language. Anyway, I'll put my good filter on. But thanks again so much, love. I can't wait till we have you on again. And we are going to jump into, if you guys can believe it, our 5th guest on this show. Thanks, all. We'll talk soon. Bye.
You know it. Bye.